and welcome back to Storytime with Alex, reading Book 3 of From Allbyon to Britannia, The Last Wizard by Brandy Pearson. They've completed the work against the Nasty Mob, and the Green Woman, who we know as Britannia, appeared and has taken away all of Nasty Mob's imagination so that they can't even conceive of magic and aren't interested anymore. But she said there was another work for them to do, if they were willing to pay the price. So let's see what's going to happen now. Chapter 19, After the Work. Marco kept an eye on them, and in the days that followed, Lad and Hecate rid themselves of all their links with Satanism and black magic, telling everyone that it was all nonsense and that people should find better things to do with their time. They got rid of all their goth clothing and fancy outfits, and even reverted to their previous names, John and Tracy Street. Sue, the manager of Hyperborea, heard all about it. It became a cause of much conversation in the area and in the world of those interested in magic. There were reports of an argument between Eddie and Vlad, or John. At the end of the row, Eddie stormed off. He was not heard of for some time, having fallen out with all of them. The effect on the six of us was quite strong. Leia found it difficult to trust people after the troubles she had gone through in life, but she felt that we had entrusted her with a vital part of the work, and that Britannia had trusted her with her voice, so that she was filled with a new self-confidence. She had to do some catch-up studying before the autumn term, and did much better than anyone thought she would. One of the houses in Aubrey Garden came up for sale, and Father Joe bought it for Leia and Ada. Although Ada had given up her magic to Leia, all her confusion had gone, and she was happier than she had been for years. Ruth became even more serious about developing as a witch, and I had come to a new understanding of becoming a wizard. I wrote inside the cover of what had become my first book of spells the words of Ada and Isidore Tuckwell: "Heal and protect, which is the whole calling of a true wizard." Sebastian seemed to spend more time with Rose and Father Joe. They had serious conversations that would suddenly stop when any of the rest of us came near. One evening, when they were sitting in Rose's garden, something happened that the rest of us only heard about when we next met up. Britannia appeared and told them she had another work for us all to perform, something that was needed for the time streamline to finally become one, so that all the strange anomalies, the different stories of Ada's past, the fairies and their sudden appearance, might become a whole. It was to do with the thin place that had been closed. She had explained it in terms of a bad scar. The thin place had been closed, but it was as if someone had a bad cut on the cheek that had healed badly and was pulling his mouth out of shape. I thought of the Joker. The work was to make the two edges of the scar meet smoothly so that the face was no longer pulled out of shape. It would need to take place on the same day of the year that the thin place had originally been closed, Holy Innocents' Day, December the 28th, and in the same place, in what was now the crypt of the Chapel of Peace in Aubrey Gardens. So we had a whole school term to prepare, and it would happen near to home. Even Sebastian had spent a great deal of time protecting the triangle during his long life in this world. However, meanwhile, we had other troubles. There were a series of burglaries in the triangle. Very random things were stolen. People were upset that their houses had been broken into, rather than worried about the value of what had been taken. There were reports of a strange person hanging around, which was very unusual for the triangle, and I began to wonder what was going on. As an exercise in my training, I put a warding spell on our house and on Miss P's when the houses were empty. Leia used a more witchy spell that Rose taught her. A couple of times someone tried to break into our house, but they failed to get in. School was okay. My apprenticeship was okay. The work we were to perform together was coming along okay too. I started to write this story, but with the feeling that it had not come to an end. Through Marco and Sue from Hyperborea, it became clear that the Nasty Mob were no more. The Streets, as they had become, had now left London and returned to Swindon, which is where they had come from. Igor had moved to somewhere in South London and got a job in a bank. Eddie seemed to have disappeared. The work was coming along at Temple House. Sebastian found many papers and records that belonged to the Templewicks and the Tuckwells. Many were on the top shelves in the library. Some were lying about in cupboards, and others were reassembled from sheets of paper spread around the house for no good reason other than wanton destruction, as Father Joe called it. There were no other signs of true magic. but Adelaide and Coniston Templewick had spent many years searching, at first for some communication with their dead sons and then their daughter, and then for something hidden, occult, special. If they had been friends of my dad, they would have subscribed to the Fortean Times and gone to conferences on ley lines and crop circles and UFO sightings. By the time the Christmas holidays started, Temple House had been renovated, and Sebastian and Father Joe, with the help of Mr. Morrison from the local history group, were beginning to organise a small museum about the history of Temple House and the people who had lived there. Most of us were surprised when Sebastian announced that he was going to move in and manage a library of the Fortean and the occult. Strange people began to come and take an interest, including several Harry Potters and a couple of Gandalfs. None were true wizards, but they were pleasant people, interested in the house and its history, and eager to look at the books in the library. Sue from Hyperborea would come over and help sort through the books. Many belonged to Sebastian, and many from Father Joe. On Christmas Day, we were all invited to Ada and Leia's house. With the help of Rose, they made us all a wonderful Christmas dinner. Afterwards, Rose told some of us stories from the witches of old Albion, and Ada told another story that had been unravelled from her memories. Sebastian created a Christmas scene with a very British miniature Father Christmas dressed in green with a holly wreath and mistletoe crown, who whizzed about the room in a tiny sleigh pulled by ponies. Later, as it grew dark, we went out into the garden and the fairies made a beautiful light display. We almost forgot what we were going to do a couple of days later. And if you want to find out what that is, you're going to have to come back next time for chapter 20, which is the final chapter. What is how are they going to... Oh, I don't know. Just went into babble mode then. But yeah, come back, join me, see how this is all going to end.